AITA for wanting to cut my parents off completely when I move out. Me, F22, and my husband, M23, along with our two daughters, F1.5, F7 months, are currently living with my parents. I'm not gonna get into why we are living with my parents, that's a whole other story. For context, me and my father, M58, have never had a good relationship growing up and recently just seems to worsen. For whatever reason, I'd always had hopes our relationship would get better over time, but since I've gotten older it was clear to me it was never going to. At one point it was better during the time I was pregnant with mine and my husband's first daughter, that was until she was born. After I had given birth, I was 20 at the time, what was supposed to be a beautiful day of celebrating the birth of mine and my husband's baby girl was turned into nothing but drama. To no surprise, my father made it about himself, calling my mother angry and creating drama thinking I wouldn't let him see his granddaughter. It was a whole thing. I even tried FaceTiming him so he could see her and he never answered or hit declined any time I had tried to call. The day ended with me completely stressed and crying. Since mine and my father's relationship was getting better, I wanted him to come visit me at the hospital to see mine and my husband's baby, but he never showed up the 4 days I had stayed at the hospital. There weren't any complications, I had stitches, it was my first baby, they just wanted to make sure me and baby were okay before letting us go home, that's why the stay was so long. I didn't live with my parents at the time of the birth of mine and my husband's first baby girl being born, we were living with my husband's dad. Me and my husband weren't currently married at this time. My mom's best friend picked us up from the hospital and took us home because my mom was at work. Later on we went to go visit my family so everyone could meet our baby girl. When we go to my parents' house, my father refused to look at me and my daughter. My mom had yelled at him and he finally decided to talk to me and look at the baby. When he looked at my daughter, all he did was shrug his shoulders and say cool. He refused to hold her, and after a while of my parents arguing he finally did. My daughter was hungry so I prepped a bottle and my father fed her. My daughter wasn't taking the bottle so I tried helping my father by showing him what works best to help her take the bottle and he yelled at me and said back off and leave me the hell alone, I've had kids, I know what I'm doing. After that I took my baby when she was done eating and left. The birth of our second child was completely different, no drama so not much to say about that, just that again he never called, answered my calls, and never visited. Fast forward. I always told everybody since mine and my husband's first daughter was born that we weren't going to physically discipline her or any future children. I was growing up and it caused a lot of PTSD and anxiety and I never want my children to feel that way or experience something horrible like that ever. Everyone agreed, except for my parents, I guess you could say they're old school. I never took any mind to it because at the end of the day that is mine and my husband's daughter and it is our decision on how we raise her and other children in the future. A couple months ago I had a really rough day with kids and just needed a few minutes alone to gather myself and reset. My mom got home from work and she told me I'll take the girls so you can rest for a bit. With that being said, I went to my room to gather myself and reset and just breath. My plan was only to be in there for 5 minutes and get back to the girls. I wasn't even in my room for a solid 1 minute, if that, until I heard a loud smack and my oldest daughter screaming. I opened my bedroom door and went flying out of my room and said, what the fuck just happened? My parents proceed to tell me, my daughter was climbing up her toy caddy and wasn't listening so my dad hit her. I kept it together because I didn't want to yell in front of my daughter. Both my parents proceed to tell me that I am a bad mother and that I let my oldest daughter, who is 1.5 and still learning, run me over and run rabid. I absolutely lost it. I started screaming and yelling at both my parents, for my father hitting my child and for my mother supporting his actions. I took both my daughters and went to my bedroom and told them both, don't expect to see your grandkids. I packed clothes for my girl, myself and my husband, called my mother-in-law and she came and picked us up and we stayed with her for the night. My husband was at work while all this took place. That following day, I was changing my oldest daughter's diaper when I noticed there was a bruise and that's when I had realized, my father hit her so hard he bruised her. We had went back home that day and I didn't let him around my children for almost over 2 weeks. It was hard because I had my mom nagging me about letting him see the kids and her wanting to hold them but I didn't break. I assured my mother that he had bruised her. Both my parents thought I was lying and my father even went as far as talking about getting a lawyer. After a while things died down and I started coming out of my room more with my kids. Fast forward till now, me and my kids stay in my bedroom, we share a room. All day the only time I leave is to get food, something to drink or use the restroom. If I don't stay in my room with my kids my father will non-stop yell and scream at my child and even step up on her like he's going to fight her/hit her. So now for their safety we stay in the bedroom. I have so much fear of him hurting my children and even hurting me. I want to cut them both off because even though my mother did anything, she didn't do anything. She never stood up for my children when it comes to my father and never has since that day. It's hard because me and my mother have always had a good relationship. That was until all that happened. My mother along with other family members are telling me that I'm wrong for wanting to keep him away from my children, saying I can't keep him away from his grandchildren because he has every right to see them. Me and my husband don't have the money to get our own place, so we are stuck here until we do have the money, so we're in a sticky situation. I don't think I'm being in a hole, but my mother and family members are making me feel like one. So AITA?